Welcome, Sue and Randy.
Hello.
Mike and Andrew,
Hello.
hi, thank you. Good to see you again. And welcome to everybody else to the Third Option International live chat series. I am Sue Pinto. This is my husband, Randy. And as always, we are here with Mike and Andrea Buckley who give us a condensed overview of the topics of each topic. And tonight we will discuss topic 10, which is speaking the truth in love. But I want to mention that not each topic is not exclusive. It's not a standalone. The topics often intersect and, throughout the course of our lives. It could be minute by minute sometimes, but so these topics aren't exclusive. They do, what is the word I'm looking for? They do, well, intersect. But anyway, so we're going to review, before we do topic 10, we're going to review topic 9, which was last week, which was handling anger constructively. Very timely right now. And then we'll move on to topic 10. So Mike and Andrea, if you can just do a quick review of that and then move us into topic 10, speaking the truth in love.
Shall do. Just doing a review of handling the anger constructively. That's a tough one for everyone because, again, we were taught that perhaps anger was wrong, but the actual emotion of being angry is not wrong. It's what we do with that anger is where we get into trouble. So there's some different categories that we find ourselves in. We're either an attacker, that we've got to have our own way, and therefore we're going to really try to be domineering of that other spouse, or we could be a stuffer where we stuff it all in and take it and take it and take it, and then all of a sudden we explode. And that's not a good choice either. So those are things we learn growing up in our own families. And then as we get married, we have to kind of work it out. And by having the third option help us with this topic, we learn to use the cut method to control the anger and then use it up by doing something physical, go outside, not hitting our spouse, going out, exercising, running, whatever it takes to get that negative energy out of our bodies. And then we need to really think about, why are we angry? Our anger is telling us something. It means that we're not communicating properly, either listening or speaking properly. We're going to deal with that later in tonight's topic. And then we really need to negotiate, the problems that we have with our anger and try to do better. So it's one of those things, we have to monitor our early warning signs, take deep breaths, take out, and angry feelings are okay, but angry behavior may not be. Wish we had more time to go into it, but we've got to move forward here.
Yeah, absolutely. And anger, I think moving into this next one, speaking the truth in love, if we're angry, then and we don't control it, we don't use the cut technique, then what happens? Then we're not speaking very respectfully, which brings us right into this next topic.
Right.
This is a hard one for me to wrap my head around, so I'll be paying attention.
Speaking the truth in love. First of all, we remind everybody that this is the second part of kind of a two-part, the two topics that go together. The first one we did was listening, topic 6. And now what goes along with it is our session tonight, which is topic 10, speaking the truth in love. And those are really the two sides of communication, listening and speaking. So it's important. We learned, we can, think back that we listen reflectively. And in reflective listening, it was important that we checked out what we thought we heard. Do a redo, did I think I heard you say, that pattern, and the other spouse could take their time and correct or affirm. No, that's not what I meant. That's not what I said. Or if I said it, I really meant that. Let me go back and redo it. So we went through that process. That's the listening. But tonight, we're going to talk about the communication of the speaking, which is just as important as listening. I think that it bears saying in our relationship too, usually there's one or the other that is a better listener or not as much of a speaker. One is more verbal, the other one is a little bit more quiet. But in this topic, it's important to recognize, and we start out by saying, it's our responsibility that we can't have a relationship if we don't put the effort into the speaking part. That's our duty, that's our obligation. So that's important.
It is. When I see this lesson, this topic, speaking the truth in love, to me, I immediately see a couple of things. I see that sometimes we're going to talk about difficult subjects that we really don't want to talk about, but we have to say it nicely, because if we don't, then we're going to just be getting into a war with each other. The other thing I really gleaned from another marriage program, this leader was he was a comical guy, and he would say, in other words, we got to be nice to the girl. When we were dating, the guy was always nice and respectful to the girl. And that's what I got to remember. When I'm going to say something, I better say it nicely. I got to be nice to Andrea, because if I don't say it nicely, we're going to shut down. And that's what we're all here for, to learn the ways to do it so that we can really move on and do better in our relationship.
And I'm the only one that can speak for myself. We can't be mind readers here. I can't get inside Mike's head, and you two can't get inside each other's head. So we again say it's responsibility. We have to have the responsibility to communicate the feelings, the thoughts, the desires, the wants. We have to find words for them. And we call it, I have to be responsible for my half of the dialogue.
Right.
So what are the two sides that we're talking about here? What are the two sides of that balance?
Of the balance line?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for today's lesson, the two sides, brutally honest is on one end, and the other end of the balance line is to not tell the truth. So you could be brutally honest, let it all hang out. It is what it is. Or you could be mum's the word and I'm concealing and going around every which way, just not to avoid taking responsibility for communicating. And in the middle, we have tact. So that would be our balance line.
Right.
How to do it in a direct, clear, respectful manner of speaking.
Sometimes we get into areas of difficulty when we know we have something that was really bothering us. But then we go to somebody else and tell them about it, like a coworker or a friend.
So
and we call that a triangle, where we go off to somebody else and say what we really want to say to our spouse. But when we do that, and especially if they tell the other spouse, again, we're just hurting ourselves. We really need to be talking directly to each other about that, unless we're going for help. If we are going for help, it might be best to do that as a couple.
Right.
I think basically people maybe avoid speaking about their feelings because of a fear. A fear can come from your childhood, of being made fun of for maybe sharing something, a feeling. You could be lazy, tired, not being taken seriously. You might have been introverted as a child or felt nobody wanted to hear what you had to say. So practicing this, speaking the truth, takes courage. Again, we say that about a lot of our things. The change part takes courage. You just have to put yourself out there. It's not easy, but this is something we have to do. It's not going to work if we don't do it.
And I think the fear one, I think that's a big one for me, is not saying something out of fear. So there's moments where I'm on the side where I'm not really saying something out of fear of whatever. Maybe I'll look bad. I don't know why, but I know that that's something that I struggle with sometimes.
It's true.
True.
A lot of us.
When we're looking at good communication, our speaking is healthy when we are direct, we're clear, and we're respectful. It sounds so simple, but it isn't sometimes, because we play these games with each other. and we kind of put our foot in the water to see, is this person going to be mad when I say this, or are we going to be able to go forward with this? But being direct, again, we want to avoid those triangle situations where we are telling somebody else something that we should be talking directly with our spouse. And then if we're clear, our message must be clear. We're gonna have to talk about this more in a minute, but we just have to be very clear and right to the point about it and not dance around. And then respectful. We have to say it again the nice way. Say it so that we're not trying to hurt or win an argument. We're just really caring about a relationship more than what we're trying to get across.
Right.
I can think of just a quick example too. Have you ever found yourself in your relationship with each other, you're upset with something, so say you're in the same room together and you stomp around, like say I'm in the kitchen and Mike's in his easy chair, relaxing, and I'm just upset, like, at whatever. And so I bang the doors and I clank the dishes and I stomp around, and then I stomp around him, and then I go in and out, and he knows, well, I wonder what's cooking here. I wonder what's going on. But I got to go through this whole charade, which is what is total in violation with what he just said. It's not direct, it's not clear, and ultimately it's not respectful, it's disrespectful. So that's just like a little example of what we're saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've done that. I know I do that. A matter of fact, one of our kids just did that tonight. So it's not just between relationships, adult relationships. It's child, parent, child. I do that sometimes if I'm upset with my kids or whatever. So absolutely.
One other part, this is communicating, and we talk about listening and speaking and controlling anger, but a lot about communication comes back in my mind. It's not really as much as what we say as how we say it. So as you were talking about walking around, and we're speaking when we're not speaking, aren't we? So body language and tone and gesture and posture, all that really build the message here when we're speaking the truth, or if we're speaking the truth, right? So yeah, it's all these things are simple, as we talked about a little while ago, but they're simple, but they're not easy.
Yeah. Well, this one stuck with us. We say that a lot to each other when we get gridlocked, clear, direct, and respectful. And then there's another one we add, number 4, clear, direct, respectful, and is it really necessary? Because sometimes we get bogged down in stuff that's just, it isn't even relevant. It's really not necessary, and it doesn't have any bearing in what we're trying to communicate. So I find that with him, and I also think sometimes we offer that when people ask our opinion about something, or even when they don't ask our opinion and we're trying to communicate, and I have to stop and say, right? We say, was that really necessary? It might have been truth, but was it really, did I have to include that, or could I have just let that go? So
I hear that a lot from her.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just get off on these tangents, but true. One of the things that we've been using throughout the series for third option is the use of I statements. Well, why are they so important? Well, when we learned in the second topic, ending the blame game and taking responsibility for ourselves, when we use I statements, we're really saying I feel. And if I feel angry, I feel frustrated, I feel not listened to, those kinds of things, that takes the pressure off the other spouse, because we're not blaming them. Because if we're going to put the finger up and say, you did this, you did like that, I know a lot of guys that I would be talking with, those ears are going to just, their antennas are going to come down and they're just going to tune out. So using the I statements, if we practice them, just saying, I feel frustrated, like, I saw red when you said that about me. So that's very important, I believe.
Yes.
Well, sorry, Andrea, but it's interesting, Mike, as Andrea, you talked about saying these things and doing these things, what comes to my mind is you have to be thinking that way before you can speak that way, right? So
Right.
it's one thing to say the I statements, we have to think in I statements, which you show that you're doing, Andrea. And they're big steps to take.
Well, what helped in the group sessions, whenever people can attend the third option group sessions, there's a wonderful handout with a million feelings on it. Well, not a million, but a couple pages worth of feelings. And it's interesting how often I'll get in a conversation with someone, I'm using the same feelings, Then I look at this page and there's so many more descriptive feelings, and there's categories of feelings, and there's layers of anger or depression. Like there's more descriptive things. So I haven't even gotten to the point where I've used a third of them even.
Right.
So I think you're right, Randy. What you're saying makes me realize it is all in taking it in head knowledge and realizing, this, I have to form these statements. And in order to do that, I have to know how I feel, and nobody can tell us that. That's the work. That's our responsibility. Get in touch with those feelings.
Yeah.
And excuse me. Hopefully it's an understood that when you're doing that, your partner doesn't reject your feelings. So that's an important part of this speaking the truth. When you can get the courage to get that out, you are hopeful that that partner's going to receive those feelings and not say, well, why do you feel that way? That's ridiculous.
Or nobody can make you feel that way.
Exactly.
Or
as we move forward, there are some other techniques that we want to use, and you can see on the screen there, timing is important. I remember when I would come home from work and having a bad day, sometimes Andrea would come to the door, and she might have had a tough day too, and I would hear all this stuff coming out. And again, I said, well, let me get in the door, let me change my clothes, let me just take a couple minutes to get through this before we go on to something like difficult issues that we're talking about. So timing is really important as to when we're going to talk about such important things as difficult issues that we have to work with. The other one is a soft startup, meaning that how we feel when someone immediately accuses us or makes demands. If we could start off with something like, I know you're trying to help, but, or I appreciate your help, but, ask, why do you think this works better? Then ask for some examples. So that's where doing it in a slow and steady way might help us to get to that topic more than just jumping in and being accusatory.
Right. And asking for what we want is part of the communications too. Like take, for example, I think Mike is yelling at me, or he thinks I'm yelling at him, instead of saying to the other person, hey, stop yelling at me. We have to again stop and, okay, can we make an I statement? Say, I'd really like it if we could sit down together. If we could just sit down quietly and talk about this, rather than the accusing, you're yelling at me. Why are you yelling at me?
And sometimes we use the words like, you make me mad. Well, nobody can really make you mad. We feel mad internally. That's how that is. So if we say, how about, instead of saying, I hate all that overtime you're doing, instead of saying that, so how about if you arrange your schedule and perhaps not do overtime on Fridays? Come up with constructive examples. It sounds hokey sometimes, but it really does work if we stay at it. Those are important things.
Okay.
Yeah. Every relationship probably has red flag words that are just, I don't know, you feel the skin crawl on your back, perhaps, and they're different for different people. So or they may be topics like hot topics, sex or money or in-laws, family, kids, whatever it is. So it's a nice, this is what kind of works for us to maybe give that person a little bit of head leeway, notice, like, could we, maybe after dinner, if we have a cup of coffee, I'd like to talk to you about finances or something. Do you think, that would be a good time, or do you know a good time? Kind of just don't, I think we just dump sometimes because it's pent up in us. And so that's the side of the scale that you had up, brutally honest, not any regard for, is this other person in a different mindset of thinking, they're hangry, they're hungry and angry and, not a good time. Maybe I got to just control and wait for the right moment to do that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, let's move on to, those are all great techniques, and they're hard to do, especially when you get into, if you're already feeling that anger kind of rise in your body. So it does take some practice. And I think here's a great suggested exercise, is to set aside a specific time daily to actually practice these skills. Creating a relaxing atmosphere, and begin with some non-controversial subjects. So, just like with anything, we always tell our kids, you're not going to be great at basketball. You don't just go out there, throw a ball, and suddenly you're making every basket. It takes a while. You got to practice. You have to practice. You got to start slow. And so the same thing with this, really. Starting slow, and then each time you get a little better, get a little more comfortable. And I think part of it is you're starting to adjust your instincts or your natural tendencies. I know often natural tendencies might be to blah, blah, and go right to it and be angry and just blurt it out. And by doing this practice, now we're changing that tendency to become a more calmer, more efficient way of addressing something. Gradually progress to difficult topics and concentrate on hearing and being heard at these times rather than solutions. So again, this part is really, that last one is really just about just either speaking and listening, being able to speak it and listen. Not so much that we're coming up with solutions, because we're just practicing this. Is that correct, Mike and Andrew?
Yes, I hear you, because really, sometimes the most important thing, our spouse, when we're a little bit at odds, they want to know that you're looking right at them, that you're concentrating and focusing, and that you're not trying to multitask at a time. They're trying to say something, and if you're not giving them that attention, you're going to get into trouble with that. So if you're speaking softly, you're not yelling, and you're listening, and you have those nonverbal communications of looking at each other and making a quiet place, and not having people call you on the phone and looking at your emails and things. That's the things that we really don't do well in our society anymore. So those things do work.
Yeah, and it's getting worse. I think it's getting worse for sure with the technology. Technology has its good and its bad, and it's all how we manage it.
Right.
So questions to ponder. This goes in terms of, for yourself, do I take full responsibility for my half of the dialogue? In other words, are we sitting there and I'm just sitting here, not just letting him talk, but not really putting in any effort to communicate as well? Can I ask for what I want? Do I communicate my thoughts, feelings, and desires? Am I a lazy or sloppy communicator? I understand that one to a degree. And I think sometimes that goes back to fear sometimes. I don't want to say what I'm really thinking or feeling because of fear. Do I expect my partner to mind read? Do I talk to others about myself, my spouse, instead of talking to him or her? Do I clam up as soon as communication gets uncomfortable? And am I willing to take the time and effort necessary to be clear and tactful? And then in relationship to your spouse, do I allow or encourage my spouse to communicate? And that right there, I think some of those nonverbal cues, if one person is trying to talk and the other person's still stomping around, then clearly the spouse doesn't want to communicate. So we have to be careful of our nonverbals as well. Or am I always unavailable, overfunctioning, or cutting off my communication by attacking or withdrawing as soon as I don't like what I hear? And do I try to be sensitive to my spouse's feelings and respect his or her point of view? So as we finish up on this topic, Mike and Andrea, is there one last thought or anything, that you want to leave us with?
Well, communications is related to every other topic. It's really pivotal part of the third option program. We've talked about it with regard to responsibility, the I statements, the blame game, not using the accusing you in our communicating with each other.
Mhm.
Expectations and personality differences are also related to communications. To a large extent, they give content to our words and what the words mean to us. It's related to childhood issues. Words like mother, father, husband, wife, love mean to us to have a great deal to do what was modeled for us and what we experienced growing up. So, we could have destructive ways from childhood lingering. So again, in summarizing, we want to issue a challenge to speak the truth in love, and always acknowledging the truth is our truth, our perspective, our expectation. Like the three circles, if you drew them and you have them intersect in the middle, you'd have my truth, your truth, but the truth is the middle ground, because it has to be open to the different perspectives without being threatening or defensive. So that's how we're going to achieve better communication.
And I would just sum it up like I mentioned earlier. Guys, be nice to the girl. Girls, be nice to the guys. Do it in a positive atmosphere if you can. That will go a long way in maybe bridging that gap where we're starting to get at odds and we want to move towards a healthier relationship.
Yes.
Mhm. All right, good. Yeah. And each spouse is equally responsible for communicating who they are and what their wants, needs, and feelings are. And, that we each have to be responsible for our own half of the dialogue. So that is important. And as we finish up for this week, and I apologize, my slides somehow got mixed up. So the final thoughts are, again, just, this is all about self-change. We have to be responsible and accept responsibility for our own thoughts and behaviors. The goal is self-change. And if one person makes an effort to change, then the relationship can and will change. So we welcome questions or comments on our live chats each week. The emails are there on your screen. We have Facebook, of course, and Twitter. Please feel free to follow us there. Of course, the DVD or the streaming option is available. Again, if you're interested in having this program, now that our world is slowly starting to open up, there hopefully will come a time where meetings can again happen in person. And, if you would like to see this program brought to your area, contact a local leader or a church organization or social service organization to see if they would be willing to check it out and perhaps purchase the manual and put this program on. And maybe you feel so called to even become a mentor couple. As you go through this, you can become a mentor couple or someone as a sharing couple, where you actually participate as somebody who shares some of their experiences. And, you can certainly give a call to any third option group that is in your community or try to help spearhead a program starting in your area. So Mike and Andrea, thank you again. We appreciate you every week for joining us and explaining to us all the topic, really giving us a good overview. Topic 11 is next, right? This was topic 10. So we're on topic 11, only a few left. It's incredible. So yeah, what's topic 11? Do you have it right there?
It's really about conflict resolution. That's the one everybody wants to go right to first, instead of going through the 10 that we have. Let's go to that one now. How to fight fair. How to fight fair and learn skills to really take care of conflict in our relationships.
Right. Good. Excellent. So We'll see you again next week, Mike and Andrea. For anyone who joined us or watches our videos, please, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Share them. Let somebody else know. You never know. You never know. Somebody else might be out there who needs this, somebody you know. So thanks so much. Take care, everyone. Keep well.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome, Sue. Thanks for hosting.
Yes,
See you next week.
Okay, Randy. Yep. Bye.